In this video, we're going to do a couple of examples to show how you can quickly find the side length using a calculator when using the primary trigonometric ratios, that is sine, cos, and tan. And the big goal here is going to be to do this pretty much in one step with the calculator. So we'll get an equation and then we'll go right to the final answer from there using the calculator. And as usual, I have three different calculators set up here to show you the different scenarios. We have a Casio calculator that's set up for natural input or math input, as it's often called. And we have a Sharp calculator that's set up for line input. And you can switch the modes on those calculators, of course. And the last calculator is an iPhone calculator, which also represents what you would see on a single line display calculator. All right, so let's take a look at the example we have here. We have a triangle, and we're asked to find the length of this side x right here. And how do we do that? Well, we're going to use the primary trigonometric ratios, that is sine, cos, and tan. And notice that that side we're trying to find is the opposite side for this angle. So for that 27-degree angle, our opposite side is x, and our hypotenuse is 12, we're told that. So we're going to use the trig ratio that uses opposite and hypotenuse, and that is sine. So we can set up a little equation here. Sine of 27 degrees equals x over 12, that is opposite over hypotenuse. Now from here, there are several ways you can go about finding x. For example, you could multiply both sides of that equation by 12. But I've been asked to do this a specific way, and that is to set up both sides of this equation as a fraction. Now the right side already is written as a fraction, x over 12, and we can easily write the left side as a fraction by writing it as sine 27 degrees over 1. And there it is. Now, when we have a fraction equal to a fraction, we know that multiplying either of the two diagonals, as we call it, gives the same result. So for example, multiplying 1 by x should give me the exact same thing as multiplying sine 27 by 12. And that's the property we're going to use to get right to our final answer here. So we can actually do one of these multiplications right now and get a number. We can do sine 27 times 12. And I'll first show that on the Casio calculator. So we can just type it in as we see it with that machine. We can say sine 27, so sine button, 27, and the bracket was opened automatically, so make sure you close that when you're done, and then hit multiplied by 12. And that gives us about 5.4. So we know that sine 27 times 12 is 5.4. And that should be the same as what we get when we do 1 times x. Now 1 times x is just x. So what we're really saying here is that x is the same as sine 27 degrees times 12, which we know is 5.4. So we could just say right now that therefore x equals about 5.4 meters. Okay, and we can do the exact same type of thing with our Sharp calculator. We could say sine 27 degrees, so we'll hit the sine button, 27 degrees. This one didn't open up a bracket. Now that's okay. I can leave it like that right now because it knows I'm taking the sine of 27. And when I hit multiplied by 12, it'll know not to take the sine of that part. It's just whatever is right next to it. Of course, if you had a bunch of stuff that you were taking the sine of, you would put it all in a bracket after sine. And when we hit equals, we get 5.4 again, as we did before. And last but not least, let's take a look at the iPhone model here. We have to type things in a little bit differently here. To do sine 27 degrees times 12, we actually need to do the 27 first and then hit the sine button. So if I hit 27 sine, that actually tells me the sine of 27. And now I need to multiply that by 12. So a little bit backwards, but I still get the same answer of 5.4 meters. So that's how we can solve that problem. Now, it can look slightly different if the side that we're finding ends up in the bottom of the fraction. So we'll do one more example to show you that. So in this example, again, we have a triangle and we're supposed to find the length of side x. Well, this time, notice that we're given the angle of 32.2 degrees. And for that angle, this 9.1 centimeters is the adjacent side. and x is the hypotenuse. So we'll use what we're given here and set up a trig equation. Now, which ratio are we going to use? Sine, cosine, or tan? Well, if we're dealing with the adjacent side and the hypotenuse, that would be the cosine ratio. Specifically, we'd have the cosine of 32.2 degrees equals 9.1 over x. That is the adjacent over the hypotenuse. And we'll take the exact same approach that we did in the previous example. We'll write both sides as a fraction. So we can write cos 32.2 degrees over 1. And again, we'll consider what happens when we multiply the diagonals here. We have 1 times 9.1 should give us the exact same thing as cos 32.2 times x. So let's do what we can here. Well, 1 times 9.1, we could type that into the calculator, but we really don't need to, do we? It would just be 9.1. Now that should be the same as cos 32.2 times x. So let's think about that for a sec. Something times x is going to work out to 9.1. So how do we figure out x? Well, we use the opposite of multiplying, which is dividing. So if cos 32.2 times x is 9.1, then we can find x by doing 9.1 divided by cos 32.2. And I'm not going to write that down here. I'm just going to type that into the calculator. So we'll start by clearing our displays here. And then we'll go to the Casio calculator first. So we're going to do 9.1 divided by cos 32.2. Very important to note that we are in degree mode on all of our calculators here. If not, make sure you do switch to degree mode. Usually you can find that in the setup menu. For example, on the Casio, if I hit shift and then the mode button, I see degrees right there. And sometimes there's a DRG button that'll switch the angle modes as well. So here we go, 9.1 divided by cos 32.2. Just punch it in like that, 9.1 divided by the cosine of 32.2. Now the bracket was opened for me there. It's a good habit to make sure you close that bracket. And that gives me about 10.8. And you can do the exact same thing on the Sharp calculator. We'll just move over there and do 9.1 divided by the cosine of 32.2. And I can just hit equals here and get the exact same answer. Now with the iPhone or the single line display calculator, we have to type things in slightly differently again. And this time we'll do 9.1. And we wanted to divide that by the cos of 32.2. So we're going to hit divided by, but with this model, you have to hit 32.2 and tell the calculator you want to take the cosine of that. That's the cosine of 32.2. And to get the final answer, we just hit equals. And there we go. So no matter which method we use there, we get that our value for x is about 10.8 centimeters. And that's it. I hope that helps.